Yo, what's up, Blackish fam? I hope all is well in your corner of the world. We had to make some major changes the other day, so I apologize if we've been a bit slower putting out new music, new videos. There was an audio challenge. I was in a big open space, and I realized that it just wasn't set up the best. A couple people said that I did this freestyle reaction, and that was an awesome reaction. I put a lot of time into it, but there's an echo when you hear the music because it's recording the screen. And now I also have a high quality mic that's also recording, so you kind of get that double sound. So what we're going to do is I moved everything to a room that we don't really use anymore. It was our a baby room at one point. You see, I got the TV on the wall, of course, showing me with my thinking cap on, right? Because I didn't know what else to play in the background. But this is a better setup. I can stand up, but I can also see the videos. It just kind of gives me a little bit more space here. We're going to get right into it. I've been really waiting to get into this one. This is Fire in the Booth from Akala, and this is part 4. Now, a lot of people have told me specifically about part 4, and I'm not sure why, right? Because they kind of made it sound like 2 or 3 might be whack. Like everybody's like, yo, you got to check out part 4 instead of saying check out Fire in the Booth 1 through 4, right? I want to get right into this. This is Akala. Man, he said so much in that first video that I really want to explore some more of his work. I think we reacted to one other piece, but really excited to get into this one and just hear what he's got to say. So without further ado, let's get right into it here. I know you're going to dig this, right?
I know you're gonna dig this.
Perfect. You ready, cuz? Always, bro. Always. You know what time it is.
Stay ready so I don't gotta get ready.
Get ready to
Rumble!
Yo.
Get going. I feel like I'm in the booth.
10-year anniversary.
Of what?
Carl.
Of his album or 10 years in the game, maybe?
Turn up!
Uncle Akala, the flow farther.
The Uncle Akala.
I'm smarter than half of the darker the shit get harder. I spit yet fools when I act like I can't get a quick death. How many?
I love what he said already, right? He said he called himself Uncle Akala, right? The flow father. But I love it, he just played on that, saying smarter than Arthur. I think a lot of people know Arthur. But I love he said the darker the shit get, the harder I spit yet, right? It says, man, regardless of what you throw at me, I'm persistent, right? I'm resilient. I keep coming back.
Careers have been ended in a time that I've only ascended. Just telling things how they are now. Why would the truth be offensive? I was independent when everybody sang.
Listen to that. We have a lot of that going on in the U.S. as well. I'll run it back there, but he said, just telling things how they are. Why is it that that's so offensive? Right? In the U.S., there's a huge debate over something called critical race theory. If you don't know what critical race theory is, it basically decides what type of curriculum is in the public school system. And, I say, there's only one type of history we should teach. It's history, right? It's the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's be honest. The U.S. has a lot of tragedy, right? A lot of misery. The whole country was built on the backs of people, slaves, right? It's like building a company. You build this huge company and you don't have to pay any of your employees. I hope you succeed because you had the odds were in your favor, right? But the U.S., a lot of people want to make it sound like it was pilgrims and, the Plymouth Rock and the Mayflower, the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria, and there's this Thanksgiving feast, and they leave out all the massacre and rape and slavery. And I think it's like, why should the truth be offensive? It's unfortunate, but it makes us who we are, right? Let's run it back a few seconds. I guess we run it back to the beginning. Let's get it.
Turn up!
Uncle Akala.
The flow farther. You already know that I'm smarter than half of the darker the shit get harder. I spit yet fools when I act like they can't get a quick death. How many careers have been ended in a time that I've only ascended? Just telling things how they.
Kind of reminds me of Jay-Z. He said, I watched the Rovers roll up with ribbons, be banged up, repoed, sold, and then redriven. I'm still hot, right? Like I've been here. I've been doing this. Now you could come up with your Range Rover and your rims and your bling and talking about all these moves I'm making. But he said, yo, I've been here. If I'm not mistaken, when we just heard him, he said 10 years. I don't know if that's 10 years in the game. It looks like this video alone is from 2016. So it sounds like this cat's earned a few stripes in the game.
They are now, why would the truth be offensive? I was independent when everybody signed, still independent, respect my grind, own my own masters, know what that mean? Understand back catalog, are you green?
You hear what he said? He said, I own my own masters, right? He said, I'm still independent. I was independent when everybody signed. Now, that means that he's an independent artist, right? Like someone like Ross, somebody like, I believe Toby Wigway was. There's a lot of artists that want creative freedom, so they don't want to sign with a record label. But he said, I own my own masters. Do you know what that means? When you own your own masters, if you're in music especially, that means that you have the legal right to make money from your recordings, right? You can collect royalties, or you can license your music to film, TV, or advertisements. And then he said, understand back catalog, or are you green, seen, right? A back catalog is just your catalog of work, right? When I check out a new artist, like someone who's new to me, like Akala, I want to check out at least 5 of his songs so I can understand who he is as an artist. I never want to listen just once and be like, okay, he's cool, but it's like, no, you got to size him up, right? Listen to the lyrics, do a breakdown. It might not be your favorite artist, but he might have different tracks on his catalog, right? So that's all a catalog is. A back catalog is all of your work, your previous work. But once you make it, let's say if Akala becomes more of a mainstream artist, or if he crosses over to the US, that catalog is worth money because people are going to want to revisit it or use it for other purposes. If he owns the rights to that, that means he's creating wealth for himself or for future generations, right? Now, when he says, are you green? Nobody really says that anymore, at least in the US. They used to mean that you weren't, enough to be dangerous, but you don't really fully understand the concept of something. He said, or are you green? That means like wet behind the ear, they used to say in the US, right? Wet behind the ear means that you're new to something. You're still a baby, right? You might not understand this. We're at different levels of how you comprehend this.
Just telling things how they are now, why would the truth be offensive? I was independent when everybody signed, still independent, respect my grind, own my own masters, know what that mean? Understand back catalog, are you green? Seen, means that my kids have a pension. I ain't got kids, just thought I would mention.
Just a flex right there, right? I was just saying it means he's creating wealth, right? And what did he say? He's like, I'm looking like, what the hell am I doing there? I'm doing this little 360 dancing, a little ballerina move. But yeah, he's creating wealth, right? He said that my kids have a pension. That's not what he means in a formal sense, like he's working a city job and a pension something you get when you retire. No, but he's saying that his kids have wealth. His kids have something he can pass down that's not Jordans and Gucci belts, right? It's something that holds value. That's awesome. You know, he said, I ain't even got no kids, but I just thought I'd mention it, right?
Seen, means that my kids have a pension. I ain't got kids, just thought I would mention. See my attention, mangala mention, murder a syllable and strangle a sentence. Stand to attention, all of your henchmen still couldn't bench him.
If you don't know let's run it back. If you don't know what henchman is, that's like part of your crew, right? That does your dirty work. Like, if you think Ninja Turtles, right? The Ninja Turtles are always going against Master Shredder, right? And Master Shredder has his foot soldiers, the Foot Clan. Those would be the henchmen. Or Bebop and Rocksteady would be his henchmen, right?
Mangala mention, murder a syllable and strangle a sentence. Stand to attention, all of your henchmen still couldn't bench him because he's too heavyweight wrenching. Like,
yeah, he said still couldn't bench him, but he's talking about, and because he's too heavyweight, right? There's wordplay on lifting weights and doing a bench press. When they say, hey, how much can you bench? Can you bench him? And then he said brethren. I think a lot of people, especially in the U.S., we don't really use that. When listening to Akala, I heard things like mendem, brethren, right? He's talking about his people.
Jungle selection, come through humble affection. 10 years since the first album. 10 years since the first album. 10 years still touring, natural supporters. We all know why they don't play me though. I'm not rapper. Rap about matters that actually matter. Challenge.
You know, and we call that conscious rap. I don't know if you guys use the same terminology in the UK, but he said, I'm that rapper. Rap about things that actually matter, right? And he's saying, I got real supporters, but we all know why they don't play me, though. I'm sure that he doesn't. It looks like, he's got almost 2 million views on this video. People are definitely playing him, but it's not a mainstream commercial artist, right? Now, he hasn't hit that tipping point to go out to the masses, and you have to ask yourself why. Well, in hip hop, the powers that be don't always like conscious hip hop or socially conscious hip hop. It's a subgenre of hip hop that challenges the dominant culture, right? Political, philosophical, and economic consensus. Now, you think about the social issues, right? Or you're talking about political conflict. And conscious hip hop is not it's not necessarily overtly political, but the terms conscious hip hop and political hip hop are sometimes used interchangeably. But they don't always mean the same thing, right? We've broken down artists like Marlon Craft. There's definitely more of a political spin on his work. I don't necessarily get that from Akala. Again, I've only heard two of his songs. It sounds that he's enlightened, right? He's what you would consider he's what you would consider woke. But he's not talking about like overthrowing a government, or he's not talking about let me just silence my phone here. He's not talking about anything that's really too crazy. He's just talking about more historical references, I would say, than political. But let's see, right? We're only a minute in. We don't know where he's going to go with this.
Power war, every single tour is 10% more now. Why do you think that happens? Content matters, albums matter, songs they matter.
And what did he say? Every tour is 10% more?
You know why they don't pay me though? I'm not rapper. Rap about matters that actually matter. Challenging power war. Every single tour is 10% more now. Why do you think that happens?
Yeah, he's growing his market share, right? He's growing his fan base. The same thing that we're looking to do with this channel. You know, I made sure I get people that call me all the time, and they're like, yo, we can get you 5,000 subscribers overnight. Hey, we can do this and get this liking of the... I don't want any of that, right? I want to grow organically, really as an independent person. I don't want to even turn on monetization right away, even when we hit that point. Why? Because I like creative freedom, and I want to make sure that any company that's doing business with me, I want to understand how they spend their dollars, right? Now, that matters to me. Yeah, I get it. You're somebody who's you want a presence, and you understand that there's a lot of a minority community on my channel, so you can reach specific demographics. But we need to know how you're spending your money. If we're promoting something on our channel, I want to know a little bit more about it, right? I want to grow organically. We've just started at the start of the year, and we've already passed 500 subscribers within about a month and a half time. That's excellent. And there's subscribers that interact with me, right? Yeah, we understand, and we go back and forth about what songs we could check out, what new artists. I'm adjusting things so you can get the best quality audio. Now we're doing intellectual breakdowns and taking our time with this, right? I'm not looking for fast growth and just to have 2 million likes or 3 million subscribers. I want a good base of people that really we have the same passion, where we want to get positive music and positive work out to the masses, and we want to give these artists the spotlight, right, that they deserve if they're putting together something that's this intricate.
Matters, albums matter, songs they matter, lyrics they matter, integrity matters, flows it matter. It's word to skibba, we deal with the matter, no industry hype.
He said word to skibba. I don't know if that's a reference that's specific to the UK. I would think Matt Skiba, who was he was a co-lead vocalist and guitarist for Blink 182. I don't know if they have something that's called matter, or a play on the word matter, because he was saying integrity matters, lyrics matters, flows matter. Word to Skibba, we deal with the matter. So it's like, who is Skibba? Is this a friend? Is this a UK pop cultural reference? Or is he talking about Blink 182? I don't know that they're all that relevant in this day and age.
Just right what I like is to see Biko with the mic, this iron mic, what I like is the fight is a roll of the dice like rolling on ice.
Yeah, he's talking about fighting, he's talking about Iron Mike. And I think he said, right after he said Skiba, he said, no industry hype, I just write what I like. This is Steve Biko with the mic, this Iron Mike. Now, there's some wordplay there, but we have to understand the context, right? That's exactly why we break it down bar by bar, because a lot of people are just YouTube reactors, and they're like, oh, he snapped. He said he writes what he likes. I got that, but I want to know who's Steve Biko, right? He said, this is Steve Biko with the mic, this Iron Mike. Well, I know, but it's important. I always tell our kids, right? this little thing right here. If you don't understand something, if you don't know how to reference something or what somebody means, look it up. And I guarantee you'll know it for years to come. You'll be able to reference that in your mind, right? I do that all the time. That's why my friends are always like, yo, B, hey, it's a trivia night, bro. Are you down? I got you on drinks, because they know I'm going to go crush it, because I will know. I search the randomest stuff, right? Like I can tell you, he's talking about Steve Biko. He's talking about someone that I refer to as Bantu Stephen Biko. This cat was from the early 1940s, I believe 1946. But he died relatively early in 1977. But he was a South African anti-apartheid activist, right? This is someone that ideologically is probably better known as an African nationalist, or you might call him an African socialist. But basically, he was at the forefront of a grassroots anti-apartheid campaign. It was actually called the Black Consciousness Movement. And it was during the late 1960s, maybe the 1970s. But you have to think about that period in time, right? In the U.S., we were fighting for equal rights, right? We were fighting against discrimination and Jim Crow. So we have the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Then 2 years later, we have the Black Panther Party of Self-Defense, right? I believe they were founded in 1966. So think about it. This Black consciousness movement is during the late 1960s and the 70s as well, right? There was a lot of these civil rights kind of movements going on around the world. Bantu Stephen Biko was responsible for him. He actually has a series of articles that were published under the name Frank Talk. Now, if you want to dig into that further, you can search Frank Talk or Stephen Biko. But Iron Mike, that's a little bit different to interpret, because in the U.S., Iron Mike is it's American slang, but it's used to refer to men that are especially tough, right? A lot of people think military men. So there's a lot of military statues, and they tend to get those slang, I don't know, slang, but like nicknames. Like, that's Iron Mike, because it's like a soldier with something. But I think, especially with him talking about fighting, Iron Mike was a nickname to Mike Tyson, who was a really famous boxer from yesteryear. So I think if he's referring to fighting, he's probably talking about Iron Mike Tyson.
Frozen matter, it's worth the skip, we deal with the matter, no industry hype. Just rap what I like, it's Steve Biko with the mic, this Iron Mike, what I like, cause the fight is a roll of the dice, like rolling on knives, organs, sliced, cold,
rolling on knives, organs, sliced.
Cold in the life, living in a war zone, hold my advice. Take shortcuts, get cut short, long road, hard road, but more.
He said there's no shortcuts, right? He said you get shortcuts, you take shortcuts, you get cut short, right? Now there's problems with that. Some sort of movie must have just started. We'll see what we're in for.
Sure, what tour that I'm doing at the end of the year should make all this clear. Some want to get visibility, so silly fool call me a failure. I smiled to myself. These times I was on a plane to Australia, so
haters gonna hate, right? Listen to what he said, right? He said he's talking about there's no shortcuts. He said, "Yo, I'm doing by the end of the year. I should make it clear." He said, some silly fool called me a failure. I smiled to myself because I was on a plane to Australia, right? Small-minded people, man, they're just the worst to have around. Haters, right? I'll tell you what, years ago, back in 2009, I was working with some friends and we started a commercial marketing business. Now, we did commercial web design. We handled a lot of on-site SEO, a lot of just websites for small to medium-sized businesses. And man, I had some friends and they were just like, dude, why would you create a website? Why would you why are people going to go to you? Why don't they just go to India? I'm like, dude, not everybody wants to go to India or some third world country to design a website. Some people like that it's a US made company, right? With actual people that they can connect with. Dude, why wouldn't they go to somewhere like GoDaddy? And I'm like, bro, just like Akala said, like, are you green? Right? Do you understand anything about market share? If I can get just 1% of the US market for web design, I would be a very wealthy man. And these are my friends that are working at Cricket Wireless or T-Mobile or Verizon, standing up selling cell phones. Like, yeah, you're making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year, and you're gonna I'm making that as I was a sales guy, and then I basically was a leader of the sales team, and the company was splitting in two. So the president basically the CEO were splitting off, and they asked me to come on board as a partner and grow the sales end of the operation. Within 36 months, we were doing $1 million in revenue. We ended up doing that year after year, building on that. We had 20 plus employees. And I'm just looking at my shitty ass friends as they stand there selling cell phones. And I'm buying investment properties and houses and growing my family. And a beautiful wife, beautiful home, built a pool in the back. And they're over here. And I'm like, bro, you gotta stop hating on people unless you got something to offer. Right. And I realize, and if you don't take anything else from this video, remember this. If you're looking to buy a Ferrari, don't ask for advice from somebody who's driving a Camry. They're not in the same space as you. And there's levels to anything. So that's exactly what he's saying, right? Let's run it back because I want to hear that part again.
Doing at the end of the year should make
right here.
So I only get visibility. So it's silly fool
call me a failure. I sponsor myself.
These times I was on the plane to
Australia.
But
I hate it.
Fools only know what's in front of their nose, so they stunt. Australia sold out shows on the other side of the globe, but fools only know what's in front of their nose, so they
fools only know what's in front of their nose, right? I tell the kids all the time, and I'm like, dude, that loud dude in your classroom or that loud dude at work is probably the most insecure person in that room, right? You get older, you get wiser. It's like, look at the hairs on my chinny chin, right? There's old wisdom here, right? I got a lot of rings around the old, I don't want to say around my neck, but around my trunk, right? I've been in this game for a while, and I'll tell you, when you go in a room, you want to be silent. You want to walk there, you want to peep the scene. You say, hey, how are you? Hi, nice to meet you. Yeah, doing good. How are you? Very nice to meet you. You have a beautiful wife, right? But you want to read the room. You want to feel people out, right? You want to see if they're having a political conversation, what side are they on? Are they on the left side or the right side? Are they liberal? Are they socialist? Are they, what are they talking about? So that when you can go approach them, you can have an intellectual conversation. Right? It's the one that's being loud and talking that probably doesn't have any substance, right? There's some exceptions to the rule, but I always tell people, man, the quiet one is the one you have to worry about because he's a thinker. He's analyzing the situation. He's going to intelligently approach the situation. The person that's loud, it goes the same with Gucci belts, and that's not wealth. That's not power, right? You get someone that has real wealth or willpower, and it's silent. It's subtle. It's not showing you what they're peacocking and showing you everything they got.
Pose for the console shows cause the music is blue and they got no flow. I know to myself. These times I was on the plane to Australia, sold out shows on the other side of the globe, but fools only know what's in front of their nose. So they stun. Pose for the console shows cause the music is blue and they got no flow. I know.
Your music's
be astonished.
Bro.
Dog shit cannot be polished. No matter how you push it on the public, son, you cannot make them love it, son. You know how many rappers can pack out a venue in Addis Ababa. Guess what? Hit was the only one.
Addis Ababa, for the dudes in the US, you might not know it. Or maybe even in the UK, you might not know it, but this is it's a highly developed and important cultural, artistic, and financial center of Ethiopia, right? This is Addis Ababa.
Marley ever did play in Africa. You write raps, I write history.
You listen to what he's saying, right? It's so important that you know these references if you're trying to understand more about his music, because Addis Ababa, right? It's important to know where that is, the financial center of Ethiopia. But listen to what he said. He said, guess what? Bob Marley he was the only one that ever played in Africa. And, saying he's the only one is a blanket statement because I'm sure there's been other artists that have done shows in Africa. But it's important to know these things about artists because you need to know who you're supporting, right? The thing that gets me so mad sometimes, like, what is going on? This is some Bollywood or something going on. It's a little hip hop or something. But I get distracted, right? But no, it's so important because the thing that gets me mad is, we'll have these issues in the U.S., right? The police are constantly killing young black men, right? There's disproportionate police brutality in inner city neighborhoods. And we have something go down. Like just recently, we had somebody was executed serving when the police were serving a no-knock warrant. And for those that don't know what a no-knock warrant is in the U.S., you don't have to announce yourself when you're busting in the door and you're serving an arrest warrant or a search warrant. Now, what happened is this kid, the guy they were looking for wasn't there, but his cousin was staying over at his house, and he was legally armed, right? He had a legal gun. Somebody kicked in the door. He's sleeping. So first thing you do is you reach for your gun. You don't know what's going on. The police, black man with a gun. Bah, 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 bah. Killed him. When he's sleeping over his cousin's house with a legal firearm. And it's like, yo, maybe we shouldn't have no-knock warrants if the cops are constantly fear for their life when they see a black man. And it's unfortunate, but I looked around. I did a video on it. But I looked around, and some of the best YouTubers that are out there, silent, nothing going on. But then I'll look, and there's a new video, and I go check, like, yeah, I wonder what they're doing. Kim Kardashian has a new man. What? Right? So how do your favorite artists or the people that you support, how do they use their platform? Right? What good is it to have a platform where you have 1 million subscribers, 3 million subscribers, right? If you don't use that platform for good, do you have a responsibility, as well? I feel like I do, right? That's why we created this channel. We want to promote social change. We want to have intelligent conversations that can help educate people. We want to share knowledge, right? So, if we get the chance and we keep growing and month after month, we're rolling over and we're expanding our base, our foundation. I want to use this platform for good. I want to make change and to talk about things and promote change. And I think it's so important that we know these things about artists that we support. You're talking about, man, I hate hip hop. This new hip hop is whack. Well, why'd you buy his album? Why are you bumping his music, right? So what he says is, yo, it's important to know Bob Marley played in Africa. He gave his time to play in Africa when a lot of artists weren't doing that. Bob Marley, he first traveled to Africa in 1978, and he visited both Ethiopia and Kenya. And then on a more famous trip, he went to Gabon, right? And he performed at Zimbabwe's Independence Day. It's a celebration they had in 1980. It's important to know these things because what does he stand for?
On the page, I am quite literally an elder statesman to my own generation. Africa, you write raps, I write history. On the page, I am quite literally an elder statesman to my own generation. An inspiration, because the flow that I came with is a solo play by Miles Davis. Who don't know he's the greatest. So if
yeah, listen to what he's saying, right? He said, you write raps, I write history, right? Quite literally. He said, I'm an elder statesman to my own generation. Now, that means that he's trying to be the face of someone in his generation that they can relate to, that he can share information with. And he said the inspiration caused the flows I came up with as a solo played by Miles Davis, right? Now, he's talking about, we heard him reference this, I believe, in part 1 of the cipher, or the flow, Fire in the Booth. He's talking about Miles Dewey Davis, right? It's Miles Dewey Davis III. Miles Davis, he was a composer, but he's most famously known for right, he was a trumpeter. He played the trumpet, but he's one of the most influential and acclaimed figures in the history of jazz, and some might argue the 20th century, the music from the 20th century as well.
all he tells anybody else that fire in the booth is the best there's been. Is he high? Does he lie? Nah, he knows that I'm in my own league. I'm just totally separate. If we're actually going on the evidence, you wanna be a fool, do you know what the level is? You wanna be a pro, can you roll with the cleverest? Genius, I know it. Kinda like a website, kinda like a warrior, kinda like a scholar, but I could be your arse, so don't make me show it. I know a certain kind of supporters don't like when I get this mosey. You think that I care? All that show, you don't really know me. See, I'm an arrogant fuck on the mic. I am not humble, I'm only nice in real life.
Listen to what he's saying, right? Like, yo, I don't need to be humble. I don't need to be a nice guy on the mic, right? I'm here to kill it. I'm only nice in real life, right? Hi, how are you, right? There's a professional me and there's another version of me. And I think all of us from the inner city know that balance, right? Because I tell you, I'm from the inner city streets of Chicago. You know, I can move with the boys, right? I can got a little swag in my step, right? To show my age, talking about swag. But I can make moves and blend in with other people. But at the same time, I had to live more of a corporate life as well, right? I was involved with diversity, equity, and inclusion teams, DEI teams, we call them. And we have to talk about things like racism, history, not just Black history, Rosa Parks, but what a lot of people don't want to have conversations about. And I would do that kind of like, you ever see that questions for a Black guy, right? And people like questions I've been dying to ask. There's been things I've been just dying to ask that I need to know. And it's kind of a safe space, right? So we know that balance when you come from the streets, because you have to have if you want to make money and make moves in the world, you have to balance it with a professional life.
See, I'm an arrogant fuck on the mic. I am not humble, I'm only nice in real life. The one MC that does not think that the shit that defeats the whole point.
Yeah.
Combat sport, this rap stuff.
He said it's a combat sport.
They cannot catch us, they will get backed up. You can feel the energy coming through the chakras. No aggression, the hood's not listening, cause aggression is what they're living in. So I keep spitting it. G coming through the chakras. No aggression, man gets slapped when they act up. They cannot catch us, they will get backed up. You can feel the energy coming through the chakras. No aggression.
He said you can feel the energy coming from the chakras. If you're in tune with spirituality, you probably have heard the term chakra. It normally refers to wheel, right? It's like an energy point in your body. So, if you guys don't know, there a lot of people consider them spinning disc of energy that you have in your body, and they're either opened or they're aligned, and they correspond with nerves, they correspond with major organs, and they affect what they call your energetic body, right? It affects your emotional and your physical well-being. A lot of people say there's different types of chakras. I've heard up to 114. But normally when you hear someone, especially someone that's a little bit of a novice, right? They're in the beginning stages of introducing it. They're normally referring to 7 main chakras that run actually along your spine. Right? They all have a corresponding name. They have a number. There's a specific area of the spine that it focuses on.
The hood's not listening, cause aggression is what they're living in. So I keep spitting it. Every day I'm spinning them. Call me Akala. There is no synonym. Nobody similar. Not the same. I rap about.
Yeah, it was nice how he dropped that in wordplay. He said, call me Akala. Well, he said, no aggression. The hood's not listening, cause aggression is what they're living in, right? I don't need to. They're talking about preaching to the choir, right? He's like, yo, these people that are listening to my music are also living through the same struggle. And then he says, call me Akala. There is no synonym. Now, for those of you that might not have passed that little high school English we had, right? A synonym, it's a word or phrase that means exactly or nearly the same as another word or phrase. So if, let's say, for example, the example is always like shut the door or close the door. In that example, shut and close are synonyms, right? They mean the same thing, but they're different words. So by him saying, call me Akala, there's no synonym. He's saying, yo, there's nothing to compare me to, right? There's not another word that's similar to me. Like there's not another artist that's similar.
Spitting it, every day I'm spinning them. Call me Akala. There is no synonym, nobody similar. Not the same. I rap about life, they rap about chains. Yeah, we get dough when we all drag mercs. All do festivals, all get work.
Listen to what he said there. He said, what did he say? I write raps. You rap about chains or something like that, right? Let's run it back a few seconds here.
Life, they rap about chains. Yeah, we all get dough when we all drag mercs. All do festivals, all get work. We don't.
See, he said, nobody's similar, not the same. He said, I rap about life. You rap about chains. It kind of reminds me. I heard this really good reference in Toby Wigway, one of his songs. Man, Toby Wigway. If you like Akala, check out the playlist I have for Toby Wigway. I've done over 60 reactions to his music and intellectual breakdowns. And trust me, they deserve intellectual breakdowns. That boy's got imagery, artistry. He's got the flow. But one thing he says, I talk about whips and chains. All you know is whips and chains, right? But he's talking about whips, right? Whips in the U.S., we call whips cars, right? Like, man, he's got a sick whip, right? Or jump in the whip, go to the store, right? Or chain. But he's talking about whips, like, your name is Toby, boy, right? Like your master whipping you. And chains, like bondage, right? He's like, yo, I rap about life. All you talk about is chains. He said, yo, we all get dough. We all drive Mercs. And we don't call them Mercs in the U.S. We call it Mercedes. I'm pretty sure that's what he's referring to, or he might be talking about a Mercury, but I don't think he's referencing a Mercury Cougar or something, right? That just wouldn't make sense. So I imagine they say Mercs. That's the abbreviated version of Mercedes. So he's saying, yo, we all get dough, but we're not the same, right? As we were saying, there's levels to this.
They rap about chains, yeah, we all get dough, we all drive merch, all do festivals, all get work, we don't all lecture at Oxford with a hoodie on, cause I got no response for that nonsense,
I did see, there was something when I was searching this. I've only searched Fire in the Booth 1. We did one song of his that was really old, and then Fire in the Booth Part 4. But when I was searching it, I saw that he was doing some intellectual conversation at, like, I don't know if it was Harvard or Oxford. I would imagine, because he said, well, we all get money, we all do festivals, but we don't all lecture at Oxford with a hoodie on, right? He's doing different. There's levels to this. He's more of an artist than a lot of people.
We don't all lecture at Oxford with a hoodie on, cause I got no response for their nonsense. Don't all do education in war zones. Man, I shoot to go Peckham. Despite the talk, they were not.
Yeah, Peckham, if you're not from London, right? That's one of the most dangerous places to live in London. That's like where I am. I come from the inner city of Chicago. Chicago's known to be a very dangerous place, right? They had over 1,000 bodies last year alone, 1,000 homicides, and a lot of those homicides go unsolved. A lot of people don't cooperate with the police, right? A lot of people hear that, but it's like, yo, if you want to make change and you want to volunteer time, you don't do it in places where people are already middle class and doing well, right? If I did let's say a basketball tournament for the youth, and I financed it and I funded it from Blackish University, right? And we're just trying to do something for the kids, a little barbecue or so. Man, if I did that out here in the middle class suburbs, the kids would be showing up with their new Jordans. They'd be pulling up their basketball socks, their elbow bands. They got mouth guards and brand new basketballs with brand new rims. No, I want to go to the hood where the rim is hanging. It's 2 inches down on one side. There's no net. And we can go over there and we can repaint the backboard. We can put up a new net, right? We can play some ball, pass out T-shirts to the kids that got Blackish University on them so we can promote the channel, but we're also doing a barbecue, or we're passing out turkeys in the hood, or on Christmas time we're giving out meal bags, right? You don't do it in a middle-class suburb. You got to go to the hood. A lot of people are like, nah, man, I'm not going to Chicago, bro. I don't want to get shot. It's like, well, you're not talking about change, right? The type of change, it's what is grasped by the root, right? You got to go right to the source.
Walking off of the places I'm stepping, catch me in anyone's hood on my own. Kids act like this in a glove, I'm a little bro. I'm 32 years old, you think I care about a postcode?
Right, I walk where I want to walk, bro.
Probably be political, cause the things that come out of my mouth is invincible. I can get removed from the physical, but if I get murked, probably be political. Cause the things that come out.
Yeah, he does say murked. I thought when he was talking about Merc, the Mercedes, that I was like, yo, we say murked out here, it means you're gonna get murked, you're gonna get killed, right? But he just used it that same way. He said, I'm not invincible. I could get removed from the physical. Now, you interpret that, right? That means that he cares. His body, his physical body, is a temporary state, right? It sounds like he's definitely spiritual, and he knows that there's other things beyond this physical world. But he said, yo, if I get murked, it'll probably be political, right? I'm standing up for something that someone caught me slipping, right?
I'm not invincible. I can get removed from the physical, but if I get
murked, probably be political.
Cause the things that come out of my mouth is a madness. I'm a rebellious bastard. We know respect for authority, so I don't suggest that you follow me. It's true, this can all end horribly, but I still be the anomaly and entrepreneur. I don't say it cause it sounds cool. It's actually true. Ain't got a diamond chain, I admit it, but I do got an office with employees in it.
Big flex. Bro, such a real flex. So many people care about the wrong things, or what we might say clap for the wrong reasons, right? I get so mad when I see someone go on Facebook, or even our teenagers. Our teenagers work at Walmart while they go to college. Walmart, Super Center, I'm sure they're all over the world at this point. And I hate when they come back and they're like, woo, I killed it. I did 60 hours this week. I was like, yo, that's nothing to be proud of, right? Because when you're done with that job, they at the end of the day, they don't really care about you, man. You're building a corporation that's made them super successful, right? The Walmart or the Walton family is one of the most powerful, well-off, financially set families in the world because of what Sam Walton did with Walmart and Sam's Club and Sam's Choice, right? I'd rather see you put 60 hours in and you're out mowing lawns and building a landscaping business. Yeah, it might be not something you consider white collar. I would argue neither is working at Walmart. But I want to see you building something that you own, right? When years ago, I mentioned that I owned part of a commercial web design company for 10 years, right? When I decided to part ways, and I was like, I'm in my upper 30s. I've done well. I have a family. I have investments. I have investment properties. I have my own property in the suburbs. My kids are doing well. I'm starting to put aside for their college. I don't want to really work the 9-to-5 hustle, right? I want to enjoy time with my family. Well, when I parted ways with that company, I did what's called selling my interest in that company because I owned 20% of that organization. Plus, I had a substantial salary that built up and other incentives that built up. So I cashed out. This was a company that was doing millions in dollars in revenue. I wanted my cut, right? And because had ownership interest in that company, I was able to extract 20% of that company financially and kind of set myself up where I could do YouTube videos all day, right? I could chill. I don't have to, I'm not part of that 9 to 5 hustle. I'm not a wealthy man by any means. But I do okay, right? I do well for myself, and I can get the toys that that I kind of want to play with, and my family is doing well. So you have to listen to what he's saying. The ultimate flex is no longer money. It's being able to wake up and you have your time, you have your freedom. Money is just what gets you that freedom, but the end goal should be freedom, right? It's he's saying, yo, I don't have a big chain, but I do got an office with employees in it, right? What's the bigger flex? Sick.
By the globe, get them paid for the brain and the lyrics while media wanna still paint us like we are just nothing but crooks. Along comes one so cool, it can make it cool to rap about books. That's sneaky and stupid, but
bro, there's so many that's such good music that I would be proud to have my 13-year-old listen to music like this. I hate when he's listening to something and I'm just like, what did he say? He's like, he said he got clapped this dude if blah blah blah, and I'm like, it's not that I have a problem with saying you're gonna clap some dude, because listen, he talked about someone getting murked, right? It's what does this person stand for? What are they rapping about? And how do you define cool? Because let's be honest, if you understand, I don't know if this is your first time to the channel. If it is, welcome. The name of our channel is Blackish University. A lot of people forget the second part. It's modern day griots. What exactly is a griot? A griot is someone. This is normally historically in the Western Africa, but it's someone that would pass down information from one generation to the next. Griots, it wasn't a job you can just apply for. You were in a history, right? You had a lineage of griots, and they passed down information. They passed down music and dance and stories, and they said the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Remember, we were talking about in the U.S., there's this critical race theory, and what should we teach in our public school system? And it's like, what about history? Right? What about actual factual history? Not alternative facts, not facts that support the European version of nationalism or patriotism, right? Just the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that's what griots did. They passed information down. And you have to ask ourselves, in a lot of inner cities like Chicago in the United States, there's not a lot of men in these homes, right? There's a lot of men in the jail system. They say 50% of African American men report to either a probation officer or a parole officer at some point in their life. 50%, right? A lot of men were removed from the home. And you have to ask yourself, if you don't have an intellectual big brother, if you're not going to college, where are you getting information about you, right? Where are you learning about your ancestors, where you come from? What was going on in Africa when certain things were happening in the US or other parts of the world? It's so important to know who you are. And that's one of the reasons we created this channel, so we can take information that all these artists are talking about and extract that information and hopefully share it with the masses. And hopefully it gets in the hands of the right people. But listen to what he's saying. He said, yo, I'm one that I can make it cool to rap about books. Right? Some people call it stupid, but all it shows is that you're clueless. And it truly does, because the books are so important. And, it doesn't have to be a physical book, right? I use this to read a lot. Why? Because I just get lazy. I read a lot of blogs. I jump between information. I might be reading about the history of Africa, and then I'm like, I wonder what's going on in the U.S. during this period. Let me search. Or what was going on in Australia or Hawaii. Like, I was watching this incredible documentary that was talking about how early Hawaiians were actually black, right? And how they had kings. So this is U.S. Property now, right? Yeah, U.S. based Hawaii is not part of the continental United States, but it's part of the U.S. A lot of people don't know that there were black kings and queens there. It was just so interesting. But if you're not reading, if you're not learning, then you just become stagnant and you're just a cog in the wheel. Nobody wants to be a cog. You're so much more than that. So it's so important to make it cool to be intellectual again. When I was younger, we used to think that only the class clown was cool. He made jokes and he was relatively stupid. And the nerdy kids were lame and they sat at one table. And now it's like, bro, it's cool. Like, I love the new generation, that Generation Z, these younger millennials, where they're like, yo, it's not cool to say derogatory terms, right? It's not cool to just bash someone because they want to do good and get into a good college and care about their future. And that's why there's going to be a return to intellectual hip hop. And I want to be here, and I would love that, man. If we can just all have a good conversation and let's stop supporting these artists that aren't saying shit about nothing, right?
All that show that you're clueless, cause the global revenue from Fox, and you can think that's sneaky and stupid, but all that show that you're clueless, cause the global revenue from Fox every year is like 10 times more than music.
Yo.
Now I've sold how many books, and self-published, how does that look?
Woo.
For those that only respect checks, swear the accountant ain't cooking the books, son, and I don't even think that capitalism should decide how you rate a rap on a rhythm. That is the age we're living in, isn't it? It's all about materialism.
All about materialism.
Do you check for the youth them? Let's see. Any one of them little tugs right there? It could have been me. It could have been me.
Yo, it's so important when we, as minorities, are like, man, I don't care about those dudes. They're just hoodlums, right? They're just out here bad. They're just out here. Bro, that could have been any one of us, right? Most of us are just a few bad decisions away from prison or something worse or death, right? Think about, I used to always say, we did a lot of hiring when we had this marketing company. And a lot of the partners are like, oh, nah, man, that guy got a DUI, bro. And I'm like, man, how many times, these are dudes I got cool with, they were my age. We were 27 to early 30s when we were running this company, right? Until I was maybe 35, 37, 38. I'm 39 now. I'll be 40 this year, this summer. But anyway, they were always hesitant to hire someone that has not a sketchy past, but just things that you would typically overlook, like a DUI. I'd say, bro, I was a fraternity guy. You know how many times I came home and I came outside to get in my car the next day, like, bro, let's go get breakfast. And I'm like, dude, my car is just sitting on the curb, right? One wheel is in the air, one is on the thing, and my side view mirror is hanging off. And I'm just like, bro, how the hell did we get home last night? Think about that. If I would have got pulled over, I would have had a DUI. It would have changed my life, but I'm still who I am. And I'm right, but I just happen to have a DUI. There's a lot of people that are born into this nonsense that goes on in the hood. So you can't always blame them. You see some dude with, South Pole, fat elbow jeans, and he's got his pants all the way down to his waist, and he's got his Jordans. And back in my day, he had the rubber bands around. He's got the Gucci belt showing, his boxers showing. He's got his collar popped up. He's got 3 different fake versions of Gucci on his face and his big and it's just like, damn, you look like this is buffoonery. This is coonery. This is dance, boy, dance, right? It's like, bro, you're just supporting all this bullshit. Do you even understand Gucci, what they stand for? Do you know anything about their history? Why is it? Are you just buying this stuff because you think that it makes you look like you have money? And unfortunately, in our, it's what you listen to Kanye West with "It All Falls Down" with that Selena Johnson, right? He said, "Man, I promise, I'm so self-conscious. That's why I see you with at least one of my watches, right? We also insecure. She dropped out of school. She couldn't afford a car, so she named her daughter Alexis." Yeah, I love that stuff. But we got to change that mindset, right? It's like real money is silent. It's subtle because you have nothing to prove. When you get credit and lines of credit, you no longer need these big fancy things because you know you can get them if you want to, right? The bigger flex is time, setting aside money for your mom, your kids. I don't want to see that. It's like, yo, look at this new bling. It's like, yeah, where does your mom live? She still works at the post office. Why? She's working at the post office for $40,000 a year. You got more than $40,000 wrapped around your neck. Why don't you help her out with retirement, right? Why don't you put your kids in, make them learn the music? Or why don't you buy a parking lot in your hood and turn it into a park or a basketball court and fun little barbecues and pass out food and make it, get by a school bus and drive people from the hood to these spots where they can get vaccinated, right? Why don't you? There's so many things that we can do that, well, and if more people did them, the world and our neighborhoods would honestly be a better place. But so many people are worried about, I do it for the gram. I'll give them $5 and take a picture while I'm doing it. Sad, bro. It's honestly sad.
Right there. It could have been me. It could have been me. It could have been me. 15, I was in chimes and trends. Coliseum way back then, surrounded by big men and the clap of a skin. You know what's been smoked in green?
I heard this in another, there was another artist I was checking out that was from the UK, and he said skeng. And I was like, what is a skeng? I thought of skank. I thought of all these other terms, but if I remember correctly, a skeng, and especially in the context, he's saying in the clap of a skeng, I think that's urban for gunshots. Let me know if I'm mistaken. I don't know a lot of the lingo out there, but I love hearing it, man. I love when you hear things like, I love when they say arse, right? A-R-S-E, not ass, arse. Love that. But I love the whole mendem and brethren, and you just don't hear that at all in the U.S.
It could have been me. It could have been me. It could have been me. 15, I was in chimes and trends. Coliseum way back then, surrounded by big men. Top of a skin. You know what's being smoked in green, but everybody pretends. These time I kick bull for the hammers. Weed in the girls, put a spanner in the matters. Fact of the matter is, lost my discipline. Late night brethrens with
he said brethren again.
From under his dad's mattress, I never grew up with dad. Who's better off? Complicated, I'm under compensation.
That's interesting, right? He said that his dad or somebody's dad had a gun under the mattress. And he said, I didn't have a dad. Who's better off? Are you better to have a dad that's exposing you to these gangster ways of life in inner city being a hood? Or is it better to not have a dad at all? I would argue that having a dad is more important regardless of his downfall, right? Or his, how would you say, his bad tendencies, because you need information about this world, right? Think about being dropped on a hostile planet and there's nobody there with you, right? You can die if you just try a berry. Now, when you're trying to eat something, you need someone that could say, no, don't touch that one. The one that has a green dot, those are the ones that you eat. Right? Who's telling you which ones have a green dot?
Satan, everybody talks roll, let them fake it. My oldest was organized crime. They lick mics, so I gas when you say you bag grams. Batman, what's that? Madman, stop that. They manufacture gas, we just pop that.
Listen to what he's saying, right? He's talking about why judge someone? The same as what we were saying is, it could have been me. That could have been me, right? He said that there's a lot of people that organize crime. He said they lick banks. In the U.S., when we talk about someone hitting a lick, that normally means a come up. If you hit a lick at a bank, you either busted open that ATM or you held that motherfucker up, right? And he said about I lick banks. He said, I'm not gassed when you say you bag grams. Why? I'm not impressed, but I'm also not like, right? It's like, oh, cool. That's cool. What type of weight you sell? What type of product? Is that all you're into? You also sell that, throw me an ounce, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's like, that doesn't, Badman? He said, what's that? Madman? Stop that. He said, they manufacture guns. We just pop that, right? Who's worse? Now, because I tell you, man, there's a lot of people in the corporate world that are thugs, right? They might not be sitting there with baggy jeans and Timbs, and you might not see a thug when you see them, but they're a thug because of their influence, right? They can use a pen, right? Donald Trump was a thug. Donald Trump has mafia connections, right? He was a thug because of his position, the positions that he took and how he tried to influence people. I don't agree with him. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I don't like Joe Biden either, right? Why? Because I think he's fucking up. And if you say otherwise, I have a lot of arguing points that I can use. But I'm not a liberal person. I'm not a Democrat. A lot of people assume, oh my God, he's got the crazy beard. He's tall, dark, and handsome. He must be a member of the. He must be a Democrat. Like, no, I consider myself common sense independent. Right? Let's talk about things that matter, and then let's have intellectual conversation about the pros and the cons, and let's make decisions based on that. I don't care if you're on the left or right side of the aisle. I care about how the decisions you make affect the greater good of humanity, right? It's like, what happened to that?
So I gas when you say you buy grams. Batman, what's that? Madman, stop that. They manufacture gas, we just pop that. They import, export, we just shop that. Hustle ain't saying I not that. I'm just saying we should see it's deliberate. And by now we should all be sick of it. I'm working on ways to get rid of it. Mass incarceration ridiculous. So I go chill and I chat to the man them. Firing the boot, I rap them. Explaining the system and I will trap them. Action more than rap.
He said mandem again. Again, it's a slang for a group of a crew or boys. Like in Australia, they might say my mates, right? Aye, mate. Right? Or what up, fam? That's what we use in the US. But over there, they apparently say mandem.
All my fire in the booths. They have been studied as texts by countless PhDs around the globe. My youth now have some respect. And they still bang on the block from Brixton to Brooklyn, Palestine to West Papua.
He said from Brixton to Brooklyn. Brixton is obviously in London. Brooklyn is in New York, so he's basically saying London to New York.
On the globe, my youth now have some respect, and they still bang on the block from Brixton to Brooklyn, Palestine to West Papua. But despite all the personal,
he said West Papua. I think a lot of people know where Palestine is. West Papua, that's in Indonesia. So he's saying London to New York, Palestine to Indonesia.
Respect, and they still bang on the block from Brixton to Brooklyn, Palestine to West Papua. But despite all the personal comfort, I still feel sick when I think of the massacre, cause the world is fucked.
Yo, for real.
Will you rule back?
Oh,
there goes.
They blocked that out, but he said there's enough to go around in the world, but we are ruled by what? Cunts, pricks, bitches. I didn't necessarily hear that. It sounded like it was blocked out. But yeah, and one of the scarier things that I've ever seen online is the hierarchy of companies in the U.S. Because a lot of people, when they say you have the illusion of free will, right? What's better, Pepsi or Coke? Most people know that Coca-Cola owns a variety of brands, not just Coke and Sprite, but they own, things like Minute Maid and this juice and this juice. And it's an umbrella company for all these other, if you would, subsidiaries, right? But they're all these other juices and brands, and then Coke and Pepsi each have their different ones. But if you trace back, there's an investment firm. There's companies like Blackstone or Black Bear. I believe it's Blackstone and Investments. They're at the top of the food chain. What that means is they own significant portions of both Pepsi and Coke and all of those other companies, right? So regardless of the company that you choose, it's owned by the same people. And they do that with like Johnson & Johnson and all those other brands and Kleenex. And there's one company that does all the laundry detergent. And there's all these different brands, but there's one company on top. And that company reports to the same investment firm. So when you really look at it, it's all these CEOs are technically working for someone else, right? I'm not talking about your private small mom and pop store or even a company like I had that was private, 20 employees. I'm talking about the big boys in the game. There's a lot of people at the top, and you'll be surprised that it's not the president. The president is a very temporary employee, but there's a minority that sits at the top that needs to control power. One would argue, I read something really interesting that talks about the world being mostly brownish, yellowish, blackish people, right? The minority are the ones that call themselves the elite, or they call themselves the majority because they have the majority of power. If we were to demand a seat at the table, let's say if there was a black nationalism movement that really was powerful, or Blackish University, we just united the world. We were all members of the same tribe. We demand a seat at the table. We demand to talk about reparations. And then we get into positions of power and influence, and then we make change. That's how change is made. That's how revolution starts. It's not an overnight process. You got to understand it's not the president. It's the people he puts in place, right? That's why a lot of conservatives love Donald Trump. Why? He's grabbing bitches by the pussy, right? How can conservatives love Donald Trump? Because he put a lot of judges that were conservative judges onto these middle appellate courts, right? Let alone somebody on the Supreme Court. Those people have lifelong tenure. Those people are there making decisions and interpreting the law for the masses for decades to come. It's so much more than just the president.
Think of the massacre, the world is fucked. There's enough to go round. When you rule back, Akala, stick to the script, just stun. Tell him how you whip, brand new something and sick. How many girls wanna?
Yo, love that, because listen to what he says. It kind of reminds me of Kanye. He said, yo, Akala, stick to the script, just stun. Tell him about your whip, brand new something and shit, right? Just chill, right? It's kind of like when they tell NBA players, shut up and play basketball, right? They want to control what it is that you do. Why? Because if you go off on a tangent and you start exploring things that question the way society works, that's not in their best interest, right? What does Kanye say? He says, always said when I rap, I say something significant, but now I'm talking about money, hoes, and rims again. And it's still about the Benjamins. What I'm gonna buy next, whatever new trend it is, right? He's talking about, he's playing off what people do, right? How we define cool, how we define success. And I love that Akala is saying that. He's like, yo, people are saying, yo, stick to the script, just stunt. We want you to be that dude that's acting like a buffoon, right? Dance, boy, I told you dance. Right? And he's like, yo, I'm so much more than that. I got something to say, and I'm going to use my platform to say it. And ooh, the masses don't like that.
Stick to the script.
Well, the masses like that, but the minority groups or the powers that be don't like that.
Tell them how you whip, brand new something and sick. How many girls wanna? Well, cuz, come on, let's be honest. I was not ugly before this shit. So you can imagine, but the brain power.
I say that. I always say that too, right? It's like, yo, am I doing this for money? No, right? That would be nice because it needs to support my time and what I put into this and the good that I can do in the community. So building our platform and building our station, it's something that we need to do so that we can have a bigger platform and we can promote more change, right? But like someone like him, I don't earn my money through YouTube, so I'm not. If I had somebody who was like, "Yo, we'll give you $2,000 a month, but you can only say this, and you need to stop talking about this," like, no, I don't want to do that, right? I'm independent just as much as he is, right? He's like, what did he say? He said, "Yo, let's be honest. I wasn't ugly before this. I'm not doing it for women either because I've been getting women, right?" He's the same. He's a kind of yellowish, blackish brother, and I've never had problem meeting women. I'd go in, they'd be like, "Oh, what do you mix with?" And like, "Oh man, what do you put in your beer?" And I said, "Oh, only the finest fruits and berries, boo boo," right?
Come on, let's be honest. I was not ugly before this shit. So you can imagine, but the brain power you cannot fathom. I mean it truly from the bottom of my heart. No, please jump on the bandwagon. I've made it cool to be conscious again. Say thanks, cause I know that you got more sense. I know that you know yourself when you were sat down with your grind and the friends. That's our culture, respect for the elders. If it's not coke, let me call you a coke kid. No biggie. When I'm out with a car, I'm so silly. I'm like my grand's name, so Millie. 10 years first.
Well, we know his grandma's name is Millie now, right? Now Millie is an interesting word because it used to be a derogatory term. That used to be like a young working class woman who dressed too casual or like sports clothes. They used to call it a Millie, but he said, "I'm like my grandma's name, so Millie." So his grandma might be named Millie. I don't think he's talking about the young working class woman who dresses casual. I think he's talking about a Millie, right? Slang for $1 million, but his grandma's name is probably Mildred or something.
Coking, no biggie. When I rap with a car, I'm so silly. I'm like my grand's name.
I like it. He says, "Yeah, you do coke. I'm gonna call you a cokehead. No biggie," right? I don't think he's talking about Biggie referencing Biggie Smalls, but I think he's saying like, I'm gonna see a duck, right? Or walk like a duck, talks like a duck. You're a duck, right?
So many. 10 years first album, 10 years no daytime play. But in October we're selling that Coco. Come along, yeah. Show on the stage.
Coco, that's for those that are maybe from the U.S. Coco's a concert venue. You might call it a theater, but I think concert venue is, they call it in the UK as well. It's in Camden Town, London, England. I know it used to be called Camden Palace, and then somebody bought it in the early 2000s and did this like massive renovation to get it to what it is now. But I believe it's now called Coco. It used to be Camden Place.
10 years, no daytime play. But in October, we're selling out Coco. Come along, learn about a show on the stage.
Came a long way.
Up in the mic, musicians and visuals all mixed right. I like 40 songs squeezed into an hour and a half. Your supporters actually right. Consistency matters, the rest is just package. Imagine these rappers is tragic. Sitting at home, having to watch me. They're like, I swear it's black magic. Yeah, black magic. Griot, tradition of the rappers.
Griot.
Craft, you man, them are suckers. Bow in the presence of greatness.
He said, I study my craft. You mandem are slackers, right? Again, mandem, it's like a collective youth, right? It means a group of boys, your mates, right? Your boys, your posse, your crew, your mandem. I got to start using that. But I love how he said griots too, right? Because he's saying, again, what are griots? They're passing information from one generation to the next.
So you're only trained to rate fakeness. Love that I get is some man, them are suckers. Bow in the presence of greatness. So you're only trained to rate fakeness. Love that I get is so overwhelming.
He said, bow in the presence of greatness. You're only trained to rate fakeness, right? So many people, so much of this world, and honestly, I feel so bad for the really young youth, not just with the pandemic and how their social skills and how they're able to use masks and how they don't have as much social interaction, but it's so fake, right? Right now, Instagram, TikTok, and the girls are just doing these dances on TikTok, and I'm like, man, back in my day, we would have said you're thirsty, you look like a hoe, right? That's what we would have. I'm older now, I'm 39, but it's like it's so fake. I look on Instagram, and it's like a highlight reel of people's lives, and they're using all these filters, and they're doing all this stuff to say, look at me, look how good I'm doing. But you don't see the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? It's a fake vision. And he said, you're only trained to rate fakeness and give it a like, right? Oh, they did something cool. Look how cute her daughter is. Do you realize that they didn't have fun? She might have been screaming and bored the whole time at the zoo. And then they're like, smile for the camera. Ah! And the gorilla's back there and shit. Oh, right? And it looks like they're having fun at the zoo. But maybe it wasn't fun at all, but they had a great picture, right? It's fake. And that's what he's saying. You're only trained to rate fakeness. That's deep.
Suckers, bow in the presence of greatness. So you're
only trained to rate fakeness.
I get it's so overwhelming, I don't even see no haters. Yeah, few men have got more status. Which one has more respect? That's what I thought. Akala's the one that they still can't get. Cause I'm like Dennis Brown meets DMX. I'm like Shabba and Brookie and Dick.
Whoa, what did he say there? He said, I'm like Dennis Brown meets DMX. That's why it's so important to understand these references if you want to understand his music, right? Because, some would argue, there's even, when I hear this, what Black Thought is known for this. He always says, I'm like this person meets this person. It's kind of like saying, like, I'm like this person had a baby, and that little baby, it was intellectual and studied history. That little baby would be me, right? But to understand how sick it is, you need to understand who he's referencing. He said Dennis Brown meets DMX. I think everybody knows DMX. Stop, drop, shut him down, open up shop. Whoa, no, that's how our Rough Riders roll. Just want to try, you just want to die. What? Right? That was my shit. But a lot of people don't know Dennis Emmanuel Brown. That's who he's referring to when he says Dennis Brown. This is someone that died. He died right before the turn of the millennium. So 1999, and he was a Jamaican reggae singer. A lot of people don't realize this, but he started in the 60s. This guy was like 10 or 11 years old. And because of that, throughout his career, this guy has 75 different albums. And of course, he did something called lovers rock, which was like a subgenre of reggae. But what a lot of people don't realize is Bob Marley actually said that was his favorite singer. So Bob Marley's favorite singer is Dennis Brown. That's huge. That should make you want to explore Dennis Brown's work in itself. If someone as iconic as Bob Marley is saying that he loved his music. And I believe he says Shabba, right? And he's talking about Shabba Ranks, but he said Shabba Ranks, and I didn't quite catch. Let's run it back a little bit here.
That they still can't get, cause I'm like Dennis Brown meets DMX. I'm like Shabba and Brookie and Dick. Running that old school.
It says Shabba, Brookie, and Dak. Now, Brocky or Brookie?
They still can't get, cause I'm like Dennis Brown meets DMX. I'm like Shabba and Brookie and Dick. Running that old.
Brooklyn or Brocky? I didn't quit. His accent.
One that they still can't get, cause I'm like Dennis Brown meets DMX. I'm like Shabba and Brookie and Dick. Running that old.
See, I don't know that reference. Let me know if you know who Brooklyn in Debt is. If he almost saying like he said Brocky, I would think Brocky was he's a Canadian musician, right? He's the lead vocalist of a heavy metal band. It's like war. It's like war, right? It's something like that. But I don't know if it's a Canadian artist. That wouldn't necessarily make sense. Let me know if you guys know who Brocky or Brooklyn in Debt.
That they still can't get, cause I'm like Dennis Brown, who's DMX. I'm like Shabba and Brocky and Deck, running that old school Stratford Rex. I feel sorry for whoever.
He said burning down old school Stratford Rex. Stratford Rex, that's a former theater. That was a cinema. It was in Stratford, Newham, London, England. Right, there was a music venue, a nightclub. I'm guessing it burned down. I didn't know that.
DMX, I'm like Shabba and Brocky and Deck, running that old school Stratford Rex. I feel sorry for whoever comes next. That's like running off the Usain Bolt. That's like singing after John Holt. That's like trying to floss on the Pope. He's so beyond money, he tries to act broke.
That kind of reminds me of there's a song by LL Cool J. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Blaze the hot Trizak, sound like heaven. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Come and get some. It says producers fantasize of borrowing flows. Tell little shorty with the big mouth, the bank is closed. That's LL Cool J talking about cannabis, right? He says, you want to pick up, you want to grab the mic of my arm. It's going to turn into a time bomb. He's like, that's like swinging with Ken Griffey Jr. or challenging Roy to a fight. Right, he's talking about, he's comparing himself to the greatest. He said, you can't do this. You got to crawl before you can walk. And that's why Akala is saying, yo, I feel sorry for whoever comes next. That's like running after Usain Bolt, the fastest man in the world. Anybody's got to look slow. Right, he said, that's like singing after John Holt. I think he's referring to John Kenneth Holt. This guy died in 2014, but he's a Jamaican reggae singer. He was a member of a group called the Paragons. He was a solo artist as well, but that's what he said. That's like singing after John Holt. It's like, damn, this guy is so good. Anything that comes after him is shitty, right? He said that's like trying to floss on the Pope. He's got so much money, he tries to act broke. Why do you think you see dads and you see men and they're just in their New Balance and their cargo shorts and the sandals? You got lines of credit. You have access, but there's so many other things that or you prioritize.
That old school Stratford Rex. I feel sorry for whoever comes next. That's like running off the Usain Bolt. That's like singing after John Holt. That's like trying to floss on the Pope. He's so beyond money, he tries to act broke. I'm like every book written at once. So I got the youth's head fucked like skunk. Little bit of reggae mixed with a bit of pop.
Okay, he said, got the youth's head. What did he say? I'm like, it's like I'm like something all at once. Let's run it back.
That's what I feel. Akala's the one that they still can't get. Cause I'm like Dennis Brown, who's DMX. I'm like Shabba and Brocky and Deck, running that old school Stratford Rex. I feel sorry for whoever comes next. That's like running off the Usain Bolt. That's like singing after John Holt. That's like trying to floss on the Pope. He's so beyond money, he tries to act broke. I'm like every book written at once. So I got the youth's head fucked like skunk. Little bit.
He said, I'm like every book written at once. I got the youth's head fucked like skunk. I'm assuming you guys use skunk the same way we do in the U.S. Skunk is, it's what they call unpollinated cannabis, right? It has higher levels of THC. THC is the ingredient in marijuana that gives you that feeling of being stoned, right? It's the paranoia, the hallucination. So it's normally, if it's skunk, it has that skunky smell. It smells like a skunk, but it's more potent weed. Some people call it kind bud, hydroponic, good bud. There's so many words. Like, I got that Bin Laden, right? You know, it's always something different.
Like running off the Usain Bolt. That's like singing after John Holt. That's like trying to floss on the Pope. He's so beyond money, he tries to act broke. I'm like every book written at once. So I got the youth's head fucked like skunk. Little bit of reggae mixed with a bit of punk. And a discipline of a Buddhist monk. How it feels when you come, she comes at the same time. Now you are one.
Come at the same time, baby.
Even if you know you don't believe in one, son, all of my children left the building.
Listen what he said about God, right?
You will swear there's a God when you're done, even if you know you don't believe in one, son, all of my children.
Now, I don't necessarily believe in God or not. One would consider myself an agnostic. You believe the existence of God can't be proven. That doesn't mean that I don't believe in a higher power or I think there's an intelligent being of some sort. I actually had a conversation, there's a video where I actually talk about an experience I had where I had something out of this world happen. I'll quickly get into it, but I had a tire that was about to pop. And on the side of the road, I saw this young white girl, and I was with all my buddies, and I pulled over like, yo, and again, don't judge me. I was like, yo, let's give her a ride and see if she's down, right? See what she's up for. Maybe we're going to go to NIU, Northern Illinois University, go have fun. Long story short, I changed my mind and locked the door, and we're on the expressway. She's trying to lift up the door. I'm like, I'm going to take off. When I go to take off, about 5 seconds in, my tire blows. And we're sitting there. I get out, and I can't see her anywhere. And I'm like, where did she go? There's nothing but cornfields here. And my buddy's changing the tire, and I'm looking around, trying to get a logical explanation of what happened. Like, maybe she thought it was a gunshot, and she dove into cornfields and crawled away. But she's just nowhere to be found. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, man, if somebody truly knew me, 18-year-old me, 19-year-old me, there's only a few things I would have stopped my car for. And a young girl on the side of the road is probably one of them. But had I not stopped, that bubble that I had on my tire would have blew. When I was going 70, 80 miles an hour, we might have lost control and flipped, and there was no one out. So by that lady appearing, it actually stopped my car down. And it might have saved our life. That very next weekend, I went to go explore. It happened to be a Christian church, and I talked to a pastor. It wasn't the right fit, that church, but I've been struggling to find a church that I feel like they're not fake as fuck, right? I go there, and it's always like a high school reunion or a fashion show, or people are passing out. Like, you touch their head, and they're like, oh! Like, what? I call bullshit, right? So I struggle with my religion. I just thought it was cool that he referenced that.
One, if you swear there's a God when you're done, even if you know you don't believe in one. Son, all of my children have left the building. Charlie can't have them back cause I've killed them. If I don't feel them, they ain't real, them fate is sealed then. Just don't deliberate over the illustrate soldier, the middleweight roller, didn't we take over, the middleweight roller, the illustrate soldier, deliberate over. I rhyme with a force, so hard to separate your mind from your thoughts. Know that I am inclined to divorce, you little big mouth from the height of your horse.
Listen to what he said. Oh, he just said another bar there. He said, I rhyme with a force. It's separating your mind from your thoughts. Know that I'm inclined to divorce, right? If you divorce your mind and your thoughts, think about that. It's such good wordplay.
So hard to separate your mind from your thoughts. Know that I am inclined to divorce, you little big mouth from the height of your horse. See, it's a sign of the...
That's saying a lot too. He said, your little big mouth from the height of your horse, right? If somebody's on their high horse, they're normally talking like they're better than people, right? They're above people. They're on their high horse. He said, your little big mouth, right? So that says a lot too, right? It's always the littlest. Think about the Chihuahua that barks too much. Out here, we say all bark, no bite.
Your mind from your thoughts, know that I am inclined to divorce, you little big mouth from the height of your horse. See, it's a sign of the times that we walk. Those that talk sense get a line in chalk. Those that talk shit get a line of support. Right round the block for the minds that they bought, for the dominant philosophy, the legal armed robbery, the global monopoly that's fucking up the only planet that we got. If I have my way, I'll tell the truth, I'll let them rock. But unfortunately, it's not. Fuck off. This is so easy. I love this shit, but I'm almost bored. I could write one of these every month, but to give them a chance, I've only wrote 4. Cool. I'm not trained.
Listen to that. He said, yo, I'm getting bored, right? And yo, this is what's great is he's not holding a cell phone reciting lyrics. He's not holding a notebook. This is all up here. It might not be a freestyle like it's coming off the dome, but I'm sure it's a mixture of what he's written over a 10-year career that he can reference as well. But it's very impressive. It reminds me of Black Thought, right? When he did the Sway in the Morning freestyle. We actually have it in our Black Thought playlist below. It's impressive, even if it was written. Just sick.
I can write one of these every month, but to give them a chance, I've only wrote 4.
I only wrote 4.
Man, they're not training. They're not ready for the levels of Shaolin.
Bars, my dog.
Wu-Tang. Albums, and I got 6. And I write books and plays and scripts. Still find time to go teach in the mix. Who told you he's not the shit? Well, a bloody liar he is. I want this little idiot try chat to me and you know me can't feel it.
Now he's just zoning out.
Told you I'm big for your belly. Not on your nelly, not on your life. Could you find one to touch him on the mic? Yeah, right. Imagine a famous rapper from the States barring for 10 minutes straight with the bloody cheek to do it.
Yo, I was just referring. Black Thought did it 10 minutes straight on Funkmaster Flex. And it was sick. But this is sick as well. And he's dropping mad knowledge.
Yeah, right. Imagine a famous rapper from the States barring for 10 minutes straight with the bloody cheek to do it double time every time. How much piece does he take? Knows that he's great, knows that you're fake, knows that he won't have a bar from your mate, knows that you're late. Look at the anticipate every word that I say when I speak, cause it's the knowledge of Timbuktu mixed with the slang of a London Jew, added in a heart and a soul of the blues. My youth now, how can I not go true? Half of a
I love what he's saying, right? He said it's the knowledge of Timbuktu. If you want to really understand a little bit more about Africa, you can search the Lost Books of Timbuktu. We have a video as well on one of our playlists below. I believe it's the one under Powerful Speeches. But we discussed Mansa Musa. Now, you'll hear Black Thought and a lot of artists like Ciroc, Toby Wigway refer to Mansa Musa, and they're like, who is that, right? No, I did some research on him, and Mansa Musa was the wealthiest person in the existence of the world. And he happened to be from Africa. This was a ruler in Africa. It's hard to quantify how much he was worth and natural resources and property and calculate his worth on today's terms. But some say that even back then he was worth an estimated $500 billion. Think about that. That's more than like Jeff Bezos and, at this day and age, right? With a big company like Amazon, right? It's not talking about that, this is a wealthy man. So much so that, when you're Muslim, you once in your lifetime, you're supposed to make that pilgrimage to Mecca. They call it Hajj. And they said that when he had a hobby, every Friday when they were on this pilgrimage, he would build a mosque. Think about that. Every Friday, just as a hobby, just building a building. He had thousands of servants that traveled with him that were all in silk, each passing out gold bars. I mean, this was just a wealthy man. So much so that they say that when he was passing out gold bars, that actually destabilized the economy for 10 years after that moment in time, right? He understood that. So when he was actually returning, he tried to buy back all the gold, even at high interest rates, so he didn't destabilize the economy, which he did. I mean, imagine that. You're going to go buy a plate of food, and they're like, how much is that? 3 gold bars, right? Because there's inflation. If so many people have access to gold, well, the cost of goods is going to go up to get that gold. What he did was he came back and he built universities, right? Libraries in Timbuktu. They said the libraries in Timbuktu had the most books throughout of all the world, that people would come to Africa for knowledge. They would come to Timbuktu for knowledge. Think about that. When someone tells you, you don't know how to do anything, all you come from is slaves. No, you come from kings and queens and royalty and knowledge and education and intellectual people. It's so important to know that.
Slang of a London Jew, and in a heart and soul that means my youth. Now how can I not go true? Half of a cracker plus half of a crew, half of a cat plus half of a room. If I'm feeling anything that's close to half part, ain't your half more than half tune. Half of my tune contains more content than every single thing you'd ever do. Guessing is easy, but only a few could spit content and still slew. I'm sure you noticed this true. One of them is not you. You what? You wanna have a Barney with the magic mouth, the machine gun armies, with the only one that is channeling Marley. You watch rappers while I'm studying Garvey. Left that.
Ooh.
We can all see who's the best that you came for Connect 4.
What do you say? You watch rappers, you study rappers, you watch rappers, I'm studying Garvey. He's talking about Marcus Garvey, right? That was a Jamaican-born black nationalist, and he was the leader of the Pan-Africanism movement. Right? A lot of people might not know about Marcus Garvey because they don't really teach him. They don't really teach his, he had a lot of controversial theories, but really he was looking to unify and connect people of African descent worldwide. Right? In the United States, he was considered mainly a civil rights activist, but he also founded the Negro World newspaper. He had a shipping company called Black Star Line. He had the Universal Negro Improvement Association that was referred to as the UNIA. It's a fraternal organization of black nationalists, right? But they don't teach that, and you have to ask yourself why. Why is it even for Black History Month, right? We learn about Rosa Parks, and we really scratched the surface of civil rights and the civil rights movement. Marcus Garvey, he had this whole movement again, but it was called Separate But Equal, and he wanted separate but equal status for people that had African ancestry, and he wanted to establish these independent black states around the world, notably in Liberia, right, that's on the west coast of Africa.
Four came for a chess match, not the same league, even the same sport, literally hundreds of stamps in the passport. Not the same league, even the same sport, literally hundreds of stamps in the passport. Nightly hundreds of stamps in the best that you came for Connect 4, came for a chess match. Because while I'm studying Garvey, left that. We can all see who's the best that you came for Connect 4, came for a chess match.
That beat change is sick, but it's a little bit, he has to speed up the tempo, but listen to what he said. He said, you came for Connect 4, I came for a chess match. Like, you're here for little kiddie games. I'm not here to play. I'm here to analyze the situation and kill you and defeat you, right?
While I'm studying Garvey, left out. We can all see who's the best that he came for. Connect 4, I came for a chess match. Not the same league, even the same sport. Literally hundreds of stamps in the passport. Not the same league, even the same sport. Literally hundreds of stamps in the passport. And I diss black women to make my living. So who's more successful than him? Yeah, I got love.
Yeah, listen to what he said. I didn't diss black women to make my living, right? I'm not being misogynistic, right? I'm not I'm not a misogynist, right? I don't have to tear down another group of people to boost myself up.
My heart breaks, not all peace and love, no, are you kidding? Yes, there were things worth killing and dying for. Ends ain't one of them though, what you lying for? Now if a man runs in your house, Tom's your mum in the side of a mouth. Who in the right mind wouldn't understand why you ended up taking him out? Yes, love is not soft or sorry. Love is so tough it can make your mum catch your body. Love's the only thing worth killing and dying for. That's what I've learned in my time on this earth. Think that I'm wrong, go to a lifeless wing. Look the man them in the eyes, done that many times, got one too many rhymes. The London in my lines, a dungeon for these guys. Crush them to define 100 at a time. Must have define the cusp of what is rhyme. Clutching and I climb up the level line was always at the top, but now they recognize. Trust that you recline when I go double time. The flow is so ridiculous, I didn't prophesied. Guys are ill advised to dive into a fight with I, the wicked eye, you will never get blind.
Yo, just sick, man. He just lost his mind there at the end. He didn't say too much that really needed an intellectual breakdown. But he's basically just talking about the work that he's doing, right? And how he's different and how he separates himself from others. Just sick with it and riding that beat when he increased the tempo of that beat change.
Guys are ill advised to dive into a fight with I, the wicked eye, you will never get blind.
Is that it? Sick. Who is this guy?
Man out the corner in the building! Oh my god! I ain't fucking want to wheel.
Man, I could not get used to the accent. It sounds like somebody's drunk uncle or something. I can't get it. This dude sounds hilarious.
Man out the corner in the building! Oh my god! I ain't fucking want to wheel up like 3 times!
What?
You are disgusting, fam! You used to be locked up, fam!
Hey, but that's the point of beautiful music, right? We don't have to have the same accent or the same ear, right, to understand it because we speak something common. You might be from the hood in UK or understand the struggle, and I might understand the struggle in the US, so we speak a common language.
Along the way! Crying against the pen, man!
We try.
You are disgusting, bro! You are an animal!
We try, bro.
Every time you come, you blow me away, fam. You supply with me, you support yourself every time. You know what? Sometimes people come back and their final booth wasn't as good as the first.
You want to keep raising the levels.
Every final booth you've done has been better, bro.
No, thank you. We're trying.
I don't even know where to put that. Like, where do you put something like that? Like, you got scales, you got levels. Fam, that's somewhere else. You got
consistency, bro.
It's over there.
We got respect the craft.
It's not even in the atmosphere, man.
It's a different league. We're trying it. Evidence is evidence. I think there's only been a few platforms that's put us all in the same space as MCs and allowed us to be judged.
Wow.
On our craft and not hype and marketing and what the record label's spending and all that. That's all good. There's nothing wrong with all of that. But it comes down to this at the end of the day, innit? Lyrics, flows, rhymes.
That was disgusting.
Bars, bro. That was insane.
You know what? I brought something though.
Insane.
I thought, you know what? Even though I knew, usually I would end it there, but I thought it's 10-year anniversary, 10 years since the first
Got
album.
something new for him?
How can we do something on this platform of all platforms?
New back then.
To take it to a new space. So I brought you a present, bro. You might have heard me mention it a few times in the rap.
Yeah.
I wrote a graphic novel / illustrated poem, collaboration with an artist called Tokyo Ayama and Troy Edwards.
So he's a real artist, right?
That's for you, bro.
Did you sign it for me?
You know what I didn't, man.
He said what you said.
I love that.
I brought a copy for you. Because I just wanted to give you a copy. It's been very good. But also because this next piece I want to share is from that story. So I've written a story. It's a long form rap that we then illustrated and turned into a graphic novel about the rise and fall of human empires. And this particular piece is from a space in the story where the main character we call the knowledge seeker is being born and reborn in sites of conflict all throughout history. So let's give them a bit conceptual, a bit different.
That kind of reminds me of, one of the Wolverine movies. You know, Wolverine and, Sabretooth. They've lived throughout history, right? So they keep, in one of the movies, they show Wolverine through different periods in time. He always heals, but he's in different battles. Listen to what he just said. This is about a part of his work where the person is reliving conflict. That's got to be interesting.
It's been born and reborn in sites of conflict all throughout history. So
Born and reborn. That's a bad life. That's hell.
I'm working with a composer at the moment to turn that into, for want of a better word, a spoken word opera. Shout out to Paul Gladstone Reed.
Spoken
so
word
this is a piece that I
opera.
wanted to share on this platform of all platforms, just to get us thinking about what the art of rhyming means and what it could be.
I check that out.
You ready for it?
I'm ready, bro.
You're an animal, man.
Let's do it. And it seems I was there. Where? Everywhere. Every battle ever fought, every stab, every shot. Through the ages of humans, this killing machine. I could feel everything though. It wasn't a dream. I was every soldier that had ever fought, with a shield and a sword. All the blood ever drawn from a dagger or a bayonet, an axe that will slay your neck, or all man gets to clap, only spraying death. I was in a tank that exploded in Iraq, in a drive-by gang war spraying out cars. I was in Nam, dropping napalm, but it burned my skin. I was also Vietnam.
Wow, he said this is a spoken word opera. He's not playing. Listen to the violin, right? And what did he say? He said, I was in Nam, dropping napalm, but it burned my skin. I was also Viet Minh, right? If you, Viet Minh's not something that's as, it's not as easy to reference. Viet Minh, there was a national independence coalition. It was actually formed by Pac Bo and Ho Chi Minh, which where you get the name of Viet Minh, right? This was in 1941. This is it's created by this is the Indo-Chinese Communist Party. It's a National United Front in Vietnam.
I was an Italian massacring Ethiopians, but the bullets only pierced my flesh because I was both of them. I could feel every single wound of the flesh, but also the pleasure of causing death. I was a soldier in the caliphate on a crusade, a killer using.
You don't really hear caliphate as often anymore. Caliphate, it's a really simple definition. It's an institution or a public office governing a territory, but that territory is under Islamic rule.
Pressed in exactly the same way. I was every woman ever killed in a witch hunt.
Ooh.
Or every little girl forced to grow with a split soul. Cause men like to snip clits or zip bits closed. So their rape feels nice before they take my life. I was fighting for liberation, a woman and a general, bringing death to cowards that sold my genitals. One moment, I killed to be free. The next, I was a monarch that killed for my greed. Tutmosis III, Alexander the Fake, Caesar, Napoleon, Francis Drake.
Damn, so he's talking about people that lost their life. They were killing on the battlefield. And then what did he say? He's going to people that were, he said, next, I was a monarch that killed for my greed. Right, so it's different forms of killing, and killing in the name of what throughout history? In the name of God, in the name of religion, or just simply killing for greed? Man, that's deep, and we could have a whole conversation about the people that he's naming. What did he say? We heard this in Fire in the Booth Part 1. He referenced this Thutmose III. Thutmose III is actually is normally referred to as Thutmose the Great. He was the 6th pharaoh of the 18th dynasty. Thutmose III ruled Egypt for like over 50 years. And I think he said Alexander the Fake. He's playing on the words. That's Alexander III of Macedon. Right? Alexander III of Macedon. That's commonly referred to as Alexander the Great. That's how most people know him. So that's why he says Alexander the Fake. Right, he was an ancient Greek. This is the kingdom of Macedonia. I think most people know Caesar, right? Julius Caesar. You probably learned about him in history class. Napoleon, right? Napoleon Bonaparte. What is he? Napoleon Bonaparte. It's the French military, right? He's a political leader that rose to greatness. They say during the French Revolution, and he basically led them through a variety of revolutionary wars, right? He was Francis Drake, that's someone that's a little bit different. I believe he was knighted, right? So he's technically Sir Francis Drake, if I'm referring to the same person. He was an explorer, he was a sea captain, he was a slave trader and a politician, but most people know him. I believe he was the first person to navigate the entire world just in one expedition. And I believe that was 1577 to 1580. So it took him 3 years to navigate the world.
Arms of the state, with armies that are great, but I was also the resistance that's hardly ever praised.
Resistance.
I was every indigenous person of America that died trying to protect their homes from a predator.
I love that. I forget what I was listening to, but it said, until lions learn how to read, then history will only tell the story of the hunter, right? And you think about that. There's so many ways that you can interpret that, but most history books in the U.S. are written from a European perspective, right? I want to hear the perspective of the slave, what they were thinking, right? How they tried to rebel, or what was going on through their mind. We have to hear both sides. They say there's 3 sides to every story, right? The good, not the good, but his side, their side, and the truth. So it's important that we hear these different recollections. But yeah, he's true. You hardly ever hear about these people.
Then a robe-clad Roman senator, and every noble that showed you the ways of the treacherous. I was in the Belgian Congo hacking off limbs. In Rwanda, a cancer doing the same thing. I was a Japanese general occupying the Philippines. A Filipino child too young to know what it means. I was at Sharpeville, I was just 2. My mother with a bullet in her head, and I knew. Barely out of a womb, I played with a wound. I knew life was a cycle, she would be back soon. I was a soldier of Ashanti resisting the British, but at the same time still selling humans to the Dutch. If you're honest with yourself and you look back through human history, you'd see that we're totally fucked.
Yeah.
Cause I was that little girl in that church in Alabama. Then the Grand Wizard, then Margaret Sanger. Then I was Paul Warfield, Timbuktu Jr. Feeling just fine in a B-29.
Oh, that's deep, man. And now he's given, these are historical references for you to understand the context. It's really important that we understand who these people are. He said something about, he said, I was that little girl in the church in Alabama. Then he said, then a grand wizard, then Margaret Sanger. To understand that, you have to know, who is Margaret Sanger. He's talking about Margaret Sanger Slee. She was, I don't know, she wasn't a women's rights activist. She was like a sex educator. She was also a nurse and a writer, but her passion was birth control. She was like an American birth control activist. And then he said, I was Paul Warfield Tibbets Jr., right? Feeling just fine in a B-29, right? What does that mean? Paul Warfield Tibbets Jr., he was a general in the U.S. Air Force. He's really known for driving those B-29 planes. They had names for really 2 specific bombs. One was called Little Boy, and I believe that's the one specifically that he dropped. That was the first of 2 atomic bombs that were used to bomb a Japanese city called Hiroshima.
I did my job. 100,000 dead.
Yeah.
I went home to relax. Then I was every child ever born with deformed limbs. Cause they were just pawns on the board to inform kings. I saw sharks following ships, intrigued by the trail that comes overboard. I saw sharks following the ship I was on. I knew then that it couldn't be long. We had tried to get free, but as if that were wrong, we were thrown overboard from the deck of the Zong. So,
man, I gotta break that down because, I love history, right? And I love studying history and studying politics. And so many people in the U.S. don't know anything about Zong. I normally refer to it as a Zong massacre. This was a mass killing. It's actually quite sad. This was a mass killing of 130 enslaved Africans by this. It was a British slave ship called the Zong. And this is 1700s. I don't even think it was 1800s yet. But basically, it was common business practice to have insurance on slaves. Remember, slaves were considered property to the more wealthy and to these business owners. And something about this, the ship, they lost direction, right? They didn't know where they were going. And they started, I don't know if they didn't know where they were going, but they got lost. And they started using up their drinking water, and there wasn't enough drinking water to cover everybody on the ship. So what did they do? The crew threw over 130 slaves, straight threw them into the ocean because they were insured. They knew they would get some money back for them. So basically, they threw 130 people overboard, and not a lot of people know that story, and I don't know why, but it's called normally referred to as the Zong massacre.
If that was wrong, we're thrown overboard from the deck of the Zong. So many bodies that the sharks couldn't finish the flesh. It took the waves to administer death. And I joined the rest at the bottom of the sea. The uncounted millions that dreamed to be free. The next minute I was back on the ship. This time as a soldier of the French. Right off the coast of Haiti, we made a gas chamber for African rebels. I couldn't deal with the stench. Then my head was chopped off by one of Dessalines' henchmen.
It's important, again, to know our history so we can understand these references. He says, my head was chopped off by one of Dessalines' men, or one of Dessalines' henchmen, I think he said. I think we all know what a henchman is. We referred to it already. That's like your posse, your crew that's out doing dirt, right? But when he says Dessalines, he's talking about Jean Jacques, right? Or Jean-Jacques. Jean-Jacques Dessalines. That's how I learned of him. He was a leader of what was called the Haitian Revolution. He was the first ruler of independent Haiti under a constitution that they put together in 1805. And a lot of people don't realize this about Dessalines. Haiti also became the first country to permanently abolish slavery. And a lot of people, I think it's important when we're referencing him to also reference some of that part as well.
They gave the order for killing the Frenchmen. Then I could see his pyramids. Can you see? Designed by man's mind and built by his greed. The strangest pyramids I ever did see. It's not built by stones, but the bones of families.
Wow. Wow. Yo. Is that it?
Wow.
Yo, he had the same reaction. Yo, that is just slick, man. This cat, I am a fan of history. I'm a fan of politics as well. I don't know that I ever heard something that impressive. I love Black Thought, right? And there's a lot of really lyrically dense artists. We go over a lot of them on this station. I feel like I could do this is the weather, right? I think I'm going to do a chalkboard here as well, so I could draw, and if we're breaking down something or talking about this is what you need to do, right? But I study politics. I study history. I love researching things. And I think it also plays well with breaking down artists like this because I can understand the context, right? And I do all of these live, right? We're not doing any editing or anything like that. But I don't think I've ever heard somebody just come off the top of the dome. And again, it might not be your typical freestyle like, yo, and you're throwing words at him and whatnot, but he retains all of this information. That's impressive in itself. If you're a fan of good music, not just Akala, but if you're a fan of music that is intellectual, right? There's actually saying something. There's something of substance. Man, make sure you show some love to our channel. We love artists like this, and we're going to continue going through Akala's catalog as well. But man, show some love and subscribe to the channel. We just got started at the start of 2022, and we're already above 500 subscribers. So it's going great for just being a month in. I apologize. We had a few days where we were handling some audio technical issues, but I think we're in business now. And man, we really look forward to seeing you guys on the next video as well.